If you're within a few years of retirement and still making these 5 money mistakes, the problem is not that retirement will be imperfect. The problem is that it may arrive carrying stress you could have prevented. And here's the thing, most people do not see the danger because these mistakes look normal while there is still a paycheck coming in. They do not feel like retirement mistakes. They feel like everyday life. That is exactly why they are so dangerous. A lot of people imagine financial trouble in retirement begins with some dramatic disaster, a market crash, a huge medical event, a sudden layoff right before retirement. And yes, those things matter. But what quietly ruins more retirements than people want to admit is something much less dramatic. It is a handful of habits and assumptions that stay in place for too long, a kind of financial autopilot, a way of living that feels manageable now but becomes brutally expensive when the timeline gets short. My name is Matthew, and I spend way too much time thinking about retirement planning, financial behavior, and the hidden mistakes that make people arrive at retirement age with less freedom than they thought decades of work would buy them. Look, I want to challenge a common assumption right away. A lot of people think retirement problems are mostly income problems. Sometimes that is true, but often the deeper issue is structural. Is how expensive life has become. Is how vague the plan still is. It is how much future security is being quietly traded for current comfort, current identity, and current convenience. That is why some people with decent incomes still feel fragile near retirement, while others with more modest incomes feel much steadier. The difference is often not only what they earned. It is what they built around what they earned. And the numbers should wake people up. In the Federal Reserve's 2024 survey, only 35% of non-retirees said their retirement savings plan was on track. That means most non-retirees either did not feel on track or were unsure. The same report found that 63% of adults said they could cover a hypothetical $400 emergency expense using cash or its equivalent, which sounds okay until you realize that more than 1 in 3 still could not do that without leaning on something else. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I'm not reckless. I'm not doing anything crazy. And that is exactly the point. The mistakes that ruin retirement are usually not crazy. They are common, socially approved, easy to justify. They're the kind of habits people defend with sentences like, I work hard, I can afford the payment, I'll deal with it later, or once I retire, I'll just spend less. Those lines sound harmless. But behind them, there is often a future being quietly weakened. So before we go deeper, write this in the comments. One money habit I'm fixing before retirement. Keep it simple and real. Maybe it is pay off debt, know my monthly number, invest more, cut fixed costs, or stop lifestyle inflation. Writing it down matters. It turns a vague intention into something more concrete. And when a goal becomes concrete, the odds that you actually follow through get stronger. Sometimes the first serious retirement move is not a transfer or a spreadsheet. It is choosing to stop being vague. The main problem is this. People near retirement often keep using mid-career money habits in a late-career reality. That is where things start breaking. The habits that were fine for now at 38 become dangerous at 58. The spending level that was survivable while income was rising becomes a trap when work stops. The debt that felt manageable becomes dead weight. The vague optimism that once felt harmless becomes a source of panic. In other words, the closer retirement gets, the less forgiving your financial life becomes. And this is where it gets really interesting. The 5 mistakes I'm about to walk through are not just financial mistakes. They're psychological ones. Each one is powered by a story people tell themselves. A story about what they deserve, what they can handle, what future them will fix, what counts as success, and what feels too uncomfortable to confront right now. If you do not see the psychology behind the math, you will keep thinking the issue is just save more. But the real issue is much deeper than that. The first mistake you must fix before retirement is pretending affordability is the same as wisdom. This one is everywhere. Somebody sees a purchase and asks, can I make the payment? Or, can this fit into the month? Or, can I still cover my bills after this? And if the answer is yes, the purchase gets approved. That logic sounds reasonable, but it is one of the most expensive habits in personal finance. Because affordability only answers a short-term question. Wisdom answers a long-term one. A car payment may be affordable right now and still be quietly weakening your retirement. A bigger house may be affordable and still create a life that is too expensive to carry later. A financed lifestyle may be manageable today and still steal the very cash flow your future needs. Here's the thing, near retirement, the question is not whether you can survive the cost. The question is what that cost becomes if repeated for 5 or 10 more years. Think about it with simple math. Say you're 57 and carrying a $650 car payment plus $180 more per month in higher insurance and related costs because of that vehicle. That is $830 a month. Over 5 years, that is $49,800. If that same money had been going into a retirement account or preserving your liquidity, it would not just be about the dollars. It would be about the flexibility, the buffer, the room. That is what people miss. They think in terms of payment pain, not future capacity. This is why so many high earners still get nervous near retirement. They made enough money to support a certain life, but not enough space inside that life. They built something expensive to maintain, and now retirement is approaching like a stress test. The second mistake is letting lifestyle inflation keep posing as progress. Look, this one frustrates me because people work hard, income rises, and almost automatically the lifestyle rises with it. Better neighborhood, better car, better vacations, more dining out, better furniture, more subscriptions, more convenience, more premium everything. None of it looks irresponsible by itself. In fact, most of it looks normal. That is the trap. Here's what most people don't realize. Lifestyle inflation does not just cost what it costs. It raises the standard your future has to fund. It changes what feels basic. It changes what you now call normal. And once a more expensive life feels normal, pulling back feels emotionally painful even when it is financially smart. Imagine someone who gets an extra $1,200 a month after taxes from raises and promotions over a few years. If $900 of that disappears into a better lease, more dining out, additional subscriptions, a few upgrades, and generally living a little, they may feel like they are moving up. But in reality, they only improve their appearance of progress. They did not improve their margin by much. They did not improve their retirement flexibility by much. They mostly moved the pressure line. That is why some people earning strong incomes still reach their late 50s with a shocking amount of anxiety. They did not fail to earn. They failed to convert earning into freedom. And this is one of those moments where viewers tend to think, that's exactly what I've been doing. Because nobody says it bluntly enough, lifestyle inflation is often retirement theft wearing nice clothes. And there is another layer. Lifestyle inflation is not just a math issue. It is emotional. It tells you the better version of you should be visible now. It ties self-worth to visible upgrades. It rewards you with a more expensive identity before the future is secured. That is why it feels so natural and so hard to challenge. The third mistake you must fix before retirement is carrying debt that steals your future cash flow. I'm especially talking about high-interest debt and consumer debt that has been hanging around long enough to start feeling normal. This is one of the quietest retirement destroyers because people adapt to it. They stop reacting to it as danger and start reacting to it as background. Bankrate reported that 64% of credit card holders with debt said they had delayed or avoided other financial decisions because of their credit card debt, and 61% of cardholders with debt had been in debt for at least a year. That tells you something important. Debt does not just sit there. It delays action. It crowds out other goals. It changes behavior. Let's make this concrete. Suppose someone carries $12,000 in credit card debt at 22% APR. The rough annual interest cost on that balance is about $2,640 if it lingers around that level. That is $220 a month vanishing into interest before reducing the principal much at all. Over 3 years, that is roughly $7,920 in interest if the balance remains stubbornly high. That money is not buying freedom. It is buying delay. Now you might be thinking, okay, but lots of people have debt. I'm still making my payments, right? But here's the problem. Minimum payments can disguise the true cost. They make the debt feel manageable because the monthly damage seems limited. Meanwhile, the future is being drained, and near retirement, that matters more than ever because future earning years are fewer. High interest debt at 32 is a problem. High interest debt at 58 is a threat. There's also a psychological weight here. Debt reduces margin. Margin reduces panic. Without margin, every setback becomes more dangerous. That is why debt does more than reduce net worth. It increases emotional fragility. It makes people more likely to delay investing, delay retirement planning, and make weaker decisions under stress. The fourth mistake is not knowing your real retirement number. This is one of the most common and most dangerous forms of self-deception. A lot of people plan for retirement emotionally, not numerically. They have a feeling, a hope, a rough target, a phrase like "I'll be fine once the house is paid off," or "I won't need that much." But retirement does not work on vibes. It works on cash flow. The Social Security Administration's January 2025 snapshot showed the average monthly benefit for retired workers at about $1,978.77, and SSA's 2025 fact sheet listed the maximum monthly benefit at full retirement age in 2025 at $4,018. That gap alone should force people to get serious, because most people are much closer to the average than the maximum. Here's what most people don't realize. When they say, "I'll just live on Social Security and a little extra," they often have no idea what a little extra actually means. If your retirement lifestyle needs $5,500 a month and Social Security gives you about $2,000 a month, that leaves a gap of $3,500 every month, or $42,000 a year. And that is before considering tax effects, inflation, healthcare surprises, home maintenance, and the fact that retirement can last decades. That is why not knowing your number is so dangerous. It keeps the problem foggy, and fog is where weak habits survive. You need to know what your current monthly life actually costs. Then, what retirement essentials would cost. Then what is flexible. Then what your income sources realistically look like. Otherwise, you're not planning. You're comforting yourself. This is where it gets really interesting. Many people do not want to know the number because they are afraid the number will force a change. A smaller house, more saving, delayed retirement, fewer upgrades, more honesty. That fear is understandable. But vague comfort is much more expensive than clear discomfort. If this is making you rethink things, subscribe here. It helps the channel keep putting out practical ideas that cut through the usual fluff, and it helps more people find useful financial thinking before they drift too close to retirement without a real plan. The fifth mistake, and maybe the deepest one of all, is protecting your current identity more than your future freedom. This is the big one. This is the one sitting underneath so many other mistakes. Because a lot of pre-retirement financial behavior is not really about money alone. It is about the identity money supports. The house proves you made it. The car reflects the version of yourself you built. The lifestyle says your hard work meant something visible. The spending keeps you aligned with your social circle. The habits maintain the image of adulthood you got used to. And that makes financial correction incredibly hard, because correction no longer feels like math. It feels personal. Look, people do not usually resist downsizing because they fail to understand square footage. They resist it because the house means something. They do not resist a cheaper car because the payment spreadsheet is confusing. They resist it because the current car says something about success. They do not resist spending less because they cannot do subtraction. They resist it because restraint feels like moving backward in identity. And here is the most important revelation in the whole script. Near retirement, the goal is no longer to prove you did well. The goal is to build a life your money can carry. That is the shift almost nobody makes early enough. Not proving, protecting, not upgrading identity, strengthening structure, not optimizing for how your life looks, optimizing for how your future feels. That mindset changes everything. It changes how you look at payments. It changes how you look at housing. It changes how you look at debt. It changes how you think about retirement timing. It changes what success even means. Success stops meaning, "I can maintain this image." It starts meaning my future is getting harder to break. And this is where the math and psychology finally lock together. If your identity demands a life that your retirement assets cannot comfortably support, then the image is too expensive. If your pride prevents you from making changes your future clearly needs, then pride is acting like debt. If your spending habits keep telling the world you are doing well while your retirement plan remains vague, then the image is not helping you. It is competing with your freedom. Now let's pull all 5 mistakes together, because they're more connected than they seem. Treating affordability as wisdom leads to more payments and obligations. Lifestyle inflation makes those obligations feel normal. Debt reduces the cash flow needed to prepare properly. Vagueness about your number allows all of it to continue without clear resistance. And identity protection keeps you emotionally attached to the very patterns that are weakening your future. That is why these mistakes are so dangerous. They do not act alone. They reinforce one another. This is like a house with 5 small cracks in the foundation. One crack may not scare you, but if all 5 deepen at once, the structure changes. That is what happens near retirement. The individual habits may still look survivable, but together they can quietly turn a decent financial life into a retirement full of pressure, second-guessing, and delayed freedom. So what should you actually do? First, write down your real monthly spending. Not the idealized version, the real one. Second, highlight every fixed cost that would still exist if your paycheck stopped. Third, calculate what your debt and financed obligations are costing you annually. Fourth, look at every recent upgrade and ask whether it increased freedom or only increased appearance. Fifth, ask the hardest question of all. If I keep living exactly like this for 5 more years, what kind of retirement am I actually creating? That last question matters because it forces honesty. It pulls the future into the room. And once the future is in the room, it gets much harder to keep approving weak habits. And maybe that is the most motivating truth of all. You do not need perfection to fix this. You need interruption. One interrupted pattern can change a year. Several can change a decade. Lower one fixed cost. Kill one debt balance. Redirect one raise instead of absorbing it. Replace vague hope with actual numbers. Let go of one status-driven habit that no longer serves the future. Those moves are not glamorous, but they are powerful. If this gave you a clearer picture of what needs to change, subscribe, keep learning about money with the channel, and share this with someone who would genuinely benefit from it. And even if they do not realize it yet, there's always someone around you who would find this information extremely useful. Someone who is earning well, but drifting. Someone who feels fine because the bills still get paid. Someone close to retirement who still thinks there is plenty of time. And if you want the next step after this, watch the related video on what to do if you're near retirement and still feel behind, because it connects directly to this topic and helps turn these warnings into a practical plan. Do not just let this feel true. Use it. Fix the habits now while they are still fixable, because retirement gets closer whether you prepare emotionally or not. The better move is to make sure your money is building freedom, not quietly stealing it.